Hello all, welcome back to another session of Analyst for 6th August 2023. In this session, we will be talking about the most important events in the Indian Express and the Hindu. Specifically, the first article which will be respect to the freebies and their concerns. The second article, in this we will be talking about a recent development by SEBI, the Securities Exchanges Board of India, and its ODR or online dispute resolution. In the third article, we will be looking at the official language debate which is going on right now in our policy circles. The next article will be about the recent tweaks that the government of India did in its trademark BharatNet infrastructure project. And finally, we will be wrapping up the session with a very interesting piece on clouded leopards and some of the research that has taken place regarding them. With this, let me walk you through the very first article, which is highly relevant for you, GS3, where we have the topics of Indian economy and the issues related to planning, mobilization of resources. So in this article, we are getting to hear that a new scheme in Karnataka is proposed where around 200 units of free electricity will be given to the consumers. Now, in this concern, there is a term that we see in the news quite often. This is related to freebies. If I talk about what is a freebie, it is something, if you imagine, that is given to you free of cost. For example, it can be a laptop. It can be this 200 units of free electricity given to you. It can be the case of mobile phones which has been given to you. And who gives it to you? The government. The government gives it to you for fulfilling some of your demands and aspirations. Now, with respect to this, let us give a very detailed article related to this. Now, in the very first instant, if we look at the concept of our welfare state is one of the provisions of our directive principles of state policy, wherein the state of India is a welfare state, wherein the government of the day will always strive to provide the goods and services to the citizens at a very affordable cost, and at sometimes the government will be giving its public some services totally free of cost. And in this only, we have several public provisions by the government at large in forms of various goods and services. So the very first classification that the government, the services that the government gives to us will be falling under public or merit goods. These goods, for example, say free education, say street lights, say the public distribution system such as the ration system we have. Now these goods and services are essentially helping us, especially the vulnerable sections, the poor sections of the population, to get the services and build some capabilities in their life. They can have access to education. The Indian women have access to street lights, well-lit streets, ensuring their safety. We have several public distribution system in cases of free wheat, free rice, free cereals given to some sections of the population, which actually gives what? The capabilities or these builds the abilities of the people to perform in their lives. Now, these are the goods which have merit in them. By merit, I mean these goods essentially build people's human resources, right? These have a long-term agenda where after consumption of these particular goods, people become more able. Now we have another types of goods. For example, these are called freebies, which I talked in the very beginning, such as free mobile phones, free laptops, free bicycles, free water supply, free electricity units. Now, these goods are not merit goods. Why? Because these goods have a very short term agenda. These goods can only help people or some people like the poor populations up to a certain level only, not beyond that level. For example, if I give bicycles to a particular person, that particular person can have access to the bicycle or public transportation for that matter, but that person must have access to free education, free food services at large. Now these services are generally given, or the freebies are generally given to the people for electoral gains. Generally, these are given by some regional parties or some of the parties in India to generally have electoral gains, because if we give the population some goods and services which are free of cost, otherwise which the people can buy themselves from the market, we are actually giving them some kind of electoral benefit in that particular matter. So these are short-term goods and services that the people generally consume, but since they are short-term, they also will have some of the benefits. For example, they are actually fulfilling the sustainable development goals. The sustainable development goals we have in cases of elimination of hunger, poverty, ensuring proper health and nutrition, right? Green cover areas. So these are the sustainable development goals from which we can get the freebies, right? Then inequalities in the societies can also be reduced if, for example, we are enabling the poorer section, the vulnerable sections to have access to laptops, to have access to mobile phones, electricity. So this will be reducing the inequalities at large, right? And also, this is also aligning with one of our own culture's primary objective of Antyodaya. Antyodaya means welfare of the last person. So if we are giving freebies to everyone, this is ensuring that almost everyone in the country is having a decent standard of living. And it is also uplifting the poorest of poor. But the thing is that there are several questions with respect to freebies. The very first question is that, are there any strings attached if we are giving these services to the people at large? Are we having any strings attached, or are we expecting some things from the people at large? If I can give you a hint, these services are generally given for electoral gains. So you are clever enough to understand that there are definitely some strings attached, that some of the political parties, some of the states, they want that the people must be dependent on them for these goods and services, right? The next question is that, who are the beneficiaries? Are the beneficiaries all or everyone, or are there some targeted beneficiaries? If the beneficiaries are everyone, even the richer classes, middle classes, poorer classes, then is it an equitable freebie for everyone? Is it ensuring the sustainable development goal in letter and spirit? Is it reducing inequalities? Because the richer sections of the population will also get free laptops, free electricity. The poorer sections will also get the same. It is not equitable in approach, right? Then the next question, can the beneficiaries themselves afford these goods and services? For example, the middle classes can easily afford 200 units of electricity. Should we give them? The poor classes generally cannot afford. They, let alone afford, they cannot even install some electric meters at their homes. So, can they afford the services? It is a very big question. And finally, are these democratic? By democratic, I mean that, are these freebies being provided by each and every political parties? Do each and every political party, starting from this recent or new political parties who do not have enough funds, to the established political parties who have huge funds, huge backing? So are we not infringing on the democratic principles in this matter? So these are the questions you all must be thinking with respect to this. And finally, we have also to see some of the other issues with respect to freebies. The first thing that comes to our mind is the S. Subramaniam Balaji case of 2013, wherein the Supreme Court itself said that the freebies are unrealistic poll promises, right? These are unrealistic poll promises, and freebies generally disturb the level playing field in elections. Remember the last question we addressed, is it democratic in nature? The Supreme Court has addressed it. No, it is not democratic in nature. Then the 14th Finance Commission, right? And the recent 15th Finance Commission also, they focused on the deteriorating state financials in this matter. The state governments, in giving the freebies, they are incurring huge amount of debts which they need to pay back. And over the time, this is leading to indiscipline and accumulation of debts on the future generations. The next issue is that it is also breeding a culture of dependency. By this, people are being more and more dependent on a particular political party for these goods and services. And with this, the long term and the short term priorities are being disbalanced. The short term priorities will be giving immediate welfare to the people. The long term goals will be about building infrastructure, building good roads, good colleges, good schools, universities. We are not paying attention to long term goals in this matter. And this is also diverting policy debates or democratic debates or healthy debates. This is shifting the debates from long-term priorities to short-term ones. We are kind of forgetting that we need to invest in long-term goals and aspirations, which is also dividing policy debate circles. And finally, this is also, since it is creating a culture of dependency, any culture of dependency can manifested be in a corruption case, because most of the freebies are kind of dependent on the government officials, right? Finally, at the end of the day, they will be signing and providing you the freebies. And these can lead to a culture of dependency first and then an increase in corruption, because they will be having the control of the freebies at the end stage. Now, the Prime Minister of India actually had a name, or still has a name for it. It is known as the Reverie culture. This means this is a gift-giving culture. These are gifts which are given to the people. And for this, we have some important data in this respect, specifically when I was talking about the state financials. Now, according to RBI, the states with highest burden of freebies, or highest subsidy burden are the states of Punjab in decreasing order, Punjab, Rajasthan, Kerala, West Bengal and Bihar. With reference to expenditure on freebies, this is around 0.1% around 2.7% of their gross state domestic product, which is huge if we talk about. Then if I talk about a particular states such as Tamil Nadu and Punjab, the state of Tamil Nadu alone accumulates for 1/3 of the country's power distribution companies' losses. That means this state is kind of given more and more benefits with respect to free electricity, and that is why this particular state is overburdened with this. The state of Punjab is expected to be worst hit in 2026 to 27, when its gross state GDP will be reaching to around 45% with respect to the debt that it owns due to heavy subsidies. And when I talk about total expenditure of all state governments that grew in these two period of times, it is around 12.9% and 11%. So we can see that over a period of time, the subsidies are not coming down. These are actually increasing, right? And this is actually again breeding a culture of dependency. Now, if we look at the latest data of 2022 and 23, we can have these states where around 2.7%, 2.1% of their gross state domestic product are attributed to freebies. So this is a very dangerous culture. This is a dangerous culture that should be ringing warning bells. And recently, we are seeing that more and more states are actually increasing the freebies, especially in the case of Karnataka. Now, what are the ways? If I recollect the words of our former president of India, Pranab Mukherjee, he said that free, fair and credible elections are the lifeblood of democracy, because if until and unless we are keeping the elections fair, And fairness will be ensured by reducing the number of freebies, ensuring a level playing field for all of the political parties. We cannot ensure a free and fair elections, and hence we can compromise democracy at large. Then we must be focusing definitely on merit goods. This has been emphasized by our Supreme Court, our 15th Finance Commission, and even by the most of the intellectual parts of a society. Right? Merit goods are the way to go forward, because these goods are also consonant with Amartya Sen's capability approach. Now, in this capability approach, we can understand that we must be building human capabilities. We must be building their political rights, social rights, educational rights, right? Then only people themselves can build their own capability and become developed, right? In this also, we have the election commission's role which comes into the picture, because election commissions with respect to freebies, they can only censure a party, not totally deregister a party based on their freebies, because freebies till the political favor in a particular political party's favor, right? So election commission must be given more and more effective roles to fight this menace. And finally, the latest Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs actually issued some standard of procedures. Now, these standards of procedures actually ensure that in the coming elections of, say, state elections and in the 2024 elections, the income tax officers will be having huge role, because they will be monitoring, observing, collecting data on each and every penny spent in the elections, and also they will be monitoring the poll promises. So they will be monitoring the situation specifically with respect to freebies, right? So this was a very important issue that needed our attention. Now with this, let us move on to the second thing. The second article is very important, specifically with respect to the online dispute resolution systems. And in this matter, the Security Exchanges Board of India has actually evolved their dispute resolution system towards an online mode. Why this is important? Because in GS2 we have statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies. And let me tell you, the SEBI is a statutory body, it is a regulatory body, and also it is a quasi-judicial body. And also when we talk about governance, this also comes to be very important, because we are talking about dispute resolution in governments, right? So this comes to be very important, and the context is that the new system with respect to SEBI will be harnessing online conciliation and online arbitration for resolution of disputes, specifically in the securities market. When we talk about securities market, we instantly get reminded of stock markets, clearinghouse corporations and such financial markets. And this particular development is actually related to this particular market only, right? Now, what is an online dispute resolution mechanism? This is a form of ADR. ADR means alternative dispute resolution. These are actually facilitated through the help of arbitration, mediation, conciliation, negotiation, these kind of things, where people actually go for out of court settlement. This means that we already know that judicial processes are overburdened with many cases. Also, it leads to more and more delays, right? So that is why, especially in some sectors such as the securities market, the financial market, there is a paucity of time. So to effectively address that, we need some proper ADR mechanisms. And when we convert ADR in online technology, or when we process arbitration, negotiation, conciliation, then we have several other ADR mechanisms. Through this, we are facilitating the online mode of ADR, which is known as online dispute resolution, right? Now, this ADR uses digital technology, and the stages of ADR will be like that. the people have to go to the ADR or say online dispute resolution services. They have to apply for them. They have to wait for a negotiator. Then the negotiator will be exploring opportunities like conciliation, arbitration. Then the parties will be eventually exploring the things and reaching an agreement. And finally, the decision will be obtained. This is the simple structure of any ADR system, and even this is applicable to the online system. The digital technologies which are used here in ODR are email services, SMS, WhatsApp, internet video recording services where we have voice over calls, we have video conferencing, and finally the integration of video calls too. Right? So these are the technologies which are used in ODR to make this dispute settlement system more transparent. Now, when we discuss about the benefits are huge. And the very first benefit is that it is an out-of-court settlement. And out-of-court settlement means that the companies themselves or the agents themselves, the individuals themselves can talk between themselves and resolve the disputes. They do not have to go to the courts because these mechanisms have the final enforceability of their decisions. For example, if the two parties come together and agree, they are reaching an agreement. This agreement will be binding in nature, right? Now, the benefits will be first, out of court settlement is there where it is not time consuming and it is also cost effective, and especially the online mode makes it very cost effective for the parties. Then there is case specificity. This means that these ODR will be requiring some extra professionals who look into case-specific cases. In this case, we are talking about the financial market. So there will be properly trained professionals in the financial market itself who will be settling these disputes. So we have more inbreeding of talents. We have more training of such people who are experienced in these matters at large. Right? And finally, these have the proper enforceability of the agreement that the parties have to agree to the award that has been culminated after the discussion. Right? Okay. Now, if we talk about the features of this SEBI's new online dispute resolution system, this is actually a total ecosystem of institutions like the National Stock Exchange, like our Bombay Stock Exchange, or all of the stock markets. Even it includes the stock brokers and also the various clearing house corporations that we have. So these are actually bringing all of the institutions. These are bringing all the independent private conciliators in India and also the arbitrators. And we are actually doing what? We are bringing everything on a common ODR portal. Here, registration or say enrollment of these three institutions, conciliators and arbitration are mandatory. Why? Because the SEBI wants to promote more dispute resolutions outside the court. Right? It is very fast and also very effective for the people at large. It will use online technologies in this matter, and each market infrastructure institution, for example, the stock brokers, the exchanges, they will identify and impanel one or more independent ODR institutions. So they will themselves select the ODRs, right? And they will be putting them at their own premises. Wherever the stock exchange is located, the premises will be that only, right? And finally, the SEBI scores portal, which looks at complaints with respect to any party that may be having complaints against a particular broker, against a particular financial company, right? So SEBI scores portal actually will also be linked with this ODR portal. So it will be facilitating and essential harmony between the complaint portal and the ODR portal, right? And the stages will be first that we have to sit for conciliation. There will be a person who will be talking to us if we have any disputes. They will be talking to us, making us understand of the various solutions out. So if it is agreed, then okay, there is a particular time limit of around 3 to 4 weeks. If we are not happy with it, it will be moving on to expert evaluation, after which we will be moving on to arbitration, where an independent arbitrator will be appointed to settle our dispute. Here, the conciliation will not be done, but that arbitrator will listen to both of the parties and decide in one or neither of the favors, right? Here also we have a time limit by which this particular dispute has to be solved. And finally, if the parties are not also even happy with the arbitration, they can litigate in a court of law, especially if they are dishappy or unhappy with the procedural conduct of the arbitration, or if there have been any procedural lapses in the total formula, right? Okay, now the benefits of the system, it will be boosting investors' confidence, especially at a time when India is not only focused on domestic investors, we are also focused on the foreign investors in our country. So those foreign investors, domestic investors, they need to harmoniously exist together. So it will be boosting confidence, because dispute settlement is a very big thing, right? Then in SEBI also, with respect to SEBI, since SEBI is a quasi-judicial body, it also has in itself a backlog of cases. Then our Indian judiciary almost have 3-4 crores cases pending, right? The overall judiciary system. So this will also reduce the backlog of cases. Then until now we had a scores portal that only looked at complaints. But now we are going further than that by bringing in ODR, or actually dispute settlement system. We early had only complaint system, not a settlement system. Then most of the international countries, or say foreign countries such as Hong Kong, even some prominent cities like New York, London, which are the financial capitals of the world, they also have this kind of facilities of dispute settlement. So we are actually bringing this more aligned to those particular financial centers. And finally, it will be also honing expertise in this particular field, because most of the people, most of the professionals who will be getting in this ODR scenario, so especially the lawyers, especially the financial brokers, institutions, they will be also having some expertise in this field. So it will be bringing a kind of ecosystem for the whole country. Now the way forward is to address first some of the challenges that exist. The very first challenge is increasing the awareness of this very system among the investors, because there are some small shareholders, small investors who maybe are still not aware of some dispute settlement system, and they are still stuck in the old system. So we must be bringing them this particular service. Then we must be also focused on digital literacy, because in India we still do not have even 50% of India which are covered by internet. So we need more and more digital literacy in this particular matter. Then there is also language barrier in this particular respect, where it can be the time that some investors are not actually sensitive to a particular set of languages chosen by the ODR mechanism. So there must be accommodation of language also. And finally, trust building must be there between the investors, between the SEBI, between the ODR, right? So that they actually trust in the new system at large. Often people, when a new system is bought, they are skeptical of those changes. So we must also be aware of these particular facts. Finally, there must also be seamless integration of phase 1 and phase 2 of this particular resolution system, because this will be actually implemented in 2 phases. The first phase will be started in August, the second will be started in September. The first phase will be kind of concerned with registration, enrollment of various market intermediaries. The second phase will be actually rolled out for proper resolution settlement. So we must be having a seamless integration in this matter, right? Right. Now, when we move on to the next one, this next article is especially relevant with respect to GS2, where the very debate of dominance of a particular language, or the very debate of whether we should be having a national language or official language, falls under Indian Constitution, is basic features, historical underpinnings, evolution in this particular structure. And to understand this, we must be first going through what is the actually debate between official languages, because as of now the context is that the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has recently commented that the central government should treat all the regional languages as official languages, and not that we must not be treating only one language such as Hindi as the official language. Now, in this matter, let us know what is official language at the very beginning. Official language is that particular language which a particular country or a state uses for its official purposes, administrative purposes, judicial purposes, right? So, this particular language is actually the main thing or main language that links the overall nation, right? Now, generally, this is part of the constitution of the country that we are interested in, and especially in India, too, we have to understand how this debate actually evolved. To understand this, we know that 14 September is our Hindi Divas, right? And do we know the history behind that? The history is that between September 12 and September 14 of 1949, we had some specific debates that were going on in the Constitutional Assembly when our first parliamentarians or the fathers of our constitution were actually sitting down together, and they were actually discussing the various provisions of each and every part of our polity. And that part came to the fore in September 12 to 14, which related to the what should be the official language of a country. Now, language is a very sensitive thing because primarily it is a cultural aspect. Now, any cultural aspect is very precious to us, especially the very emotion of mother tongue, right? Now, back then the country was just partitioned, it just became independent. It had it before various socio-political demands because most of the population were poor, illiterate, and also on the verge of poverty. So, that time this debate came up, and let us go through some of the most influential observations by some of the constitutional luminaries. The very first we can think of Jawaharlal Nehru, who told that more or less a language of the people, not a language of the learned courtier, must be the official language of the country. Because we must understand that any debate or any discussion over a particular language has to be brought across by a proper consultation, proper awareness of the people at large, right? It cannot be forced, right? It cannot be that it is a language of the majority. It has to be the language of the people. It has to connect with the people at the end of the day, because this is the nation we are talking about. So that is why we must not be going with only the language of a few or a scant majority, right? And this is what was actually told by Gandhiji himself, where Gandhiji wanted the national language of India as Hindustani. Now, Hindustani language, according to Gandhiji, was a blend of Indian languages, right? Also, according to Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, he told that unity in diversity is India's keynote, and it must be achieved by a process of understanding and consent, and that for a proper atmosphere has to be created. Because these lines are very important, a proper atmosphere has to be created, because during those debates it was seen that the Hindi speakers or the advocates for the Hindi language to be adopted as national language, they were agitating for a Hindi language, right? While the other proponents were kind of sidelined. So, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee actually advocated that the atmosphere for consultation debates must be the prerequisite before we actually sit out to decide what should be the language of our nation, right? Then, T.R. Chettiar said that Hindi is no more national to us than English. Especially he was talking with respect to the southern states of India, which were feeling frustrated and asked for accommodation instead of consultation. Because if we impose Hindi, they have to accommodate, right? They first have to be consulted. So he said that Hindi is just like English, which is foreign to us, because we in the southern states, we do not have access to this kind of Hindi, right? And according to P.T. Chacko, he said that national language has to evolve himself. It is a very deep and profound word. It has to evolve itself, and it is not to be created artificially. We cannot impose any particular language and say that it is a national language or official language or whatever, right? It has to be evolved. And it is actually the concept that Gandhiji himself gave, that a Hindustani language has to be evolved. It has to be the language of the people. It cannot be the situation that we are creating an atmosphere of fear or atmosphere of misconduct and we are settling any language for that. So it has to be created, it has to be evolved in itself and not created artificially. Now there were some other views also. According to N.V. Gadgil and A.R. Shastri, they promoted Sanskrit as a language because it was a traditional language for India for millennia of years, right? A.C. Samanta went for Bengali because he thought that Bengali literature was a more effusive kind of language that will be enriching for all of the nation. So the national song, the national anthem of India was also in the language of Bengali. According to Dr. P. Subrahyan, he suggested Hindustani in Roman script, not in Devanagari script, right? Jaipal Singh promoted a very interesting concept of promoting tribal languages such as Mandari, Gondi, Oran directly in the constitution itself, right? So these are some of the views and opinions which we can definitely use in our mains answers with credible sources. Now when we look at status of Hindi, first let us look at some of the data. Across 121 language, right, Hindi is the first language that the people of India speak, where around 43% of the population speak Hindi, followed by Bengali, Marathi, Telugu, Tamil and so on. With respect to growth of Hindi, I mean the growth of people who actually speak Hindi, it has been also in the pace of around 160%, followed by Punjabi, Maithili, Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada and so on. Right? So we can understand that Hindi is one of the most prominent languages in India. After that, we have to understand in Indian constitution, there is no national language. There is no language that spans across the whole nation telling it as this is the lingua franca of the nation. We only have something known as the official language, and that is not only one. We have Hindi in Devanagari script, and according to the same article of 343 subclause 2, we are actually having the continued use of Hindi, especially highlighted by the Official Languages Act of 1963. Initially, it was said that in the original constitution, according to Article 343, subclause 2, that English would continue for a period of 15 years, but it was subsequently extended time by time. Finally, also in Article 351, we have a directive that the center or the government must be promoting the role and spread of Hindi language over a period of time. So we can tell that this is one of the DPSPs that are outside the Articles 38 to 51 of the Indian Constitution. This is actually located in 351 article. Now, the 8th schedule of our Constitution also mentions the official languages that are actually spoken in India. Now, there are 22 languages. These are the 20 languages plus Hindi and Sanskrit. Please note that English is not official language under 8th schedule of the Constitution. It is under Article 343, but not under the 8th schedule. 8th schedule contains this list of official languages. Now, there were only 14 languages initially. Gradually, over the time, we extended the list to 22 languages, where languages such as Sindhi, Konkani, Dogri, Manipur, Bodo, these were included later on. Now, this list is actually supposedly not complete, because there have been some demand of increasing this list to 38 languages, including languages such as Bhojpuri, Garhwali, Pahari languages that we know, and also Rajasthani. So these are some of the demands. So in this matter, we have seen there are still demands, right? There are still some debates which are going on regarding the official languages. So the way ahead is that we must be remembering S.P. Mukherjee's words that India is a country which has unity in diversity. And for unity in diversity, we need not only diverse races, right? Diverse religions, diverse castes, we also need diversity of languages. We need plurality in our languages. There must be multilingual society for any particular country to be diverse, right? Now, in this matter, we should be reminding that in the past we had conflicts, especially on the base of linguistic basis, where we have seen the formation of particular South Indian states took place based on some conflicts. So we must be remembering those conflicts and avoiding them in the future. Then the development of translation and interpretation facilities must be more encouraged by the government, right? This can be done specifically with respect to making the government documents and records available in multiple languages. We must also be exploring the formula that was kind of inspired by the National Education Policy 2020, where we can have a particular schooling system where the mother tongue is actually taught up to class 8, and subsequently the Hindi language or English language or even the mother tongue can be continued there forward. So we can have a system where we are fixing mother tongue plus English as a formula. And finally, before moving on to any debates, any discussions, right, we must be having a collaboration between the states and the center at large. This can be ensured via zonal councils, where we can have the states and the center on the same table. This can be also talked about healthily in the corridors of the parliament so that people can be aware of the discussions, right? Now, with this, we come to the next article, where the government of India has recently tweaked the BharatNet. And this is very important under GST, where we have infrastructure in various aspects such as energy, ports, roads, railways, even internet connectivity, telecom operators, right? Now, in this, the recent tweak has been that apart from various changes, the Union government has approved around 1,40,000 crores for the next phase of BharatNet. This is actually driven to actually make our broadband services more tuned to the 5G network, right? And in this matter, let us understand what is BharatNet. BharatNet is a particular broadband service that is provided specifically by the government in technology of fiber optics, right? This is about connecting each and every village of India, each and every town, city of India through fiber cables and bringing internet to all, right? So the government's policy is actually implemented in such a manner that around 2.5 lakh gram panchayats will be covered by internet at least, right? Then it is executed by a special purpose vehicle, namely the Bharat Broadband Network Limited, right? Its objective is to connect with the local populations and give them the technology of broadband services, right? This can be the local ISP providers, this can be the local cable TV operators, right? This can be such people whom the government is providing the broadband infrastructure, right? The infrastructure is provided by them, and they in return provide the internet services to the villagers at the grassroots level. So in this way, we are ensuring that we are enabling the service providers such as ISP, the cable TV operators, to have the infrastructure of fiber optics and give their infrastructure to the people in return. Now, accordingly, under these two phases, actually, BharatNet have had two phases, phase 1 and phase 2 up to now. This is the phase 3 of that. In these two phases, around 5.6 lakh kilometers of optical fiber cables has been laid, right? And we can see that these are the achievements of India so far according to this project. Now, according to the latest tweaks that have been brought under, this is to make the network more 5G friendly, right? And around 1,40,000 crore has been given for this matter, and it will be connecting more 6,40,000 villages over 2.5 years. And the role of village udyamis or the service providers in the villages are becoming very important, and now the government will be sharing 50% of the revenues with the village udyamis so that they can also rope on the profits behind this BharatNet. They can also earn profits, and the people can also have access to the internet services. And finally, the cost of the infrastructure will be fully borne by the government so that the service providers need not worry at all, right? Now with this, we are coming on to the final article of today. This is about a research that has taken place with respect to clouded leopards. And pardon me, this is not GS2, but with respect to prelims, where we have general issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity and climate change. And of late, UPSC has been asking various interesting questions with respect to some interesting species. And one of those interesting species is our clouded leopards. Now, this is a research from the Wildlife Institute of India, which has found out that the clouded leopards are very unique in themselves. We will be looking at the later slides. But who are the clouded leopards? To understand this, let us look through these examples. In the world, we have two kinds of clouded leopards. One is the usual, our normal clouded leopard. Another is a Sunda clouded leopard. Now, these are special leopards which have kind of furs with them, right? They actually inhabit forests, and generally densely populated forests in regions such as the eastern coast of China, right? Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, these countries, and also a little portion of our northeast India. These are highly flexible and agile creatures, and actually their appearance resembles the saber tooth. Saber-tooth is an actual cat species that existed in our ice ages, right? It is supposedly extinct in the wild as of now, but the clouded leopards are the closest relatives of the saber-tooth. You all must have seen saber-tooth in the very popular movie Ice Age, right, where we see the saber-tooth with two big teeth, right? So they are the closest relative of the saber-tooth, and they actually have long bodied and short, right, with very long tails, right? And they can run vertically head first down the trees. They can climb trees, but they can run down the trees very easily. So these are very flexible creatures, right? And the research actually found out that they are actually the ninjas of the forest with immense amount of flexibility in their bodies. So let us be aware of this particular term, that they are actually called ninjas of the forest, because UPSC can ask, because this is an established research as of now, right? And also their pattern of hunting, then walking, and their whereabouts, habitat, it's still not clear because they are very unpredictable creatures, right? And there are some of the issues that they face, especially with respect to the habitat loss due to deforestation and prey shortage as of now. And also they are hunted for their furs, which are very expensive in the black markets. And both of the species fall under the vulnerable tag of IUCN. So it is very important that we preserve these ninjas of the forest, and also they are a relic of the saber-tooth that were actually extinct after the ice ages. So with this, I conclude today's session. I hope you all found the session very informative and educative. With this, I wish you all the very best in your endeavors. Thank you.